Father Miguel sat alone in his dimly lit office, the faint glow of the monitor casting long shadows across the room. A recent surge of burglaries in the parish had left him uneasy, prompting him to comb through security footage night after night in search of any clue. The hours dragged on uneventfully, just flickering lights and shifting shadows, until a familiar figure appeared on screen, freezing Miguel in place. It was Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, moving with purpose and completely unaware of the camera watching him. The sight shocked Miguel, whose thoughts drifted back to 2 weeks earlier, when the town buzzed with excitement at the announcement of the cardinal's visit. Tagle's reputation for compassion and humility had drawn families from across the region, and the parish had worked tirelessly to prepare for his arrival. That day, Father Miguel had welcomed the cardinal with reverence, hoping the visit would lift the spirits of a community rattled by recent events. And indeed, Tagle's presence seemed to cast a calming spell over the congregation. Yet, amidst the joy, something unsettled Miguel. The normally composed housekeeper, Clara, appeared visibly nervous, glancing repeatedly at the cardinal with an expression Miguel couldn't decipher. Was it fear, concern, or something else entirely? He made a mental note to check in with her later, unaware that this encounter was merely the beginning of a series of events that would shake his beliefs. Later that night, Clara approached the cardinal quietly near the sacristy and whispered something inaudible. His expression remained unreadable, and without a word, Clara left abruptly, her face pale and troubled. Miguel tried to dismiss the moment as nerves, but it clung to him. Then, just before midnight, a call from the church's security company jolted him awake. They had detected unusual activity on camera 3. Miguel raced to the office, heart pounding, and watched as the footage unfolded. The figure that emerged from the shadows was unmistakably Cardinal Tagle, moving with deliberate, furtive steps. He paused often, looking over his shoulder before entering Clara's quarters. Miguel stared, stunned, torn between disbelief and suspicion. Could there be a reasonable explanation? He replayed the footage again and again, but the cardinal's cautious, almost methodical behavior suggested otherwise. By morning, whispers had begun spreading among the congregation, threatening to erupt into scandal. Though Miguel had hoped to quietly observe and gather facts, the truth was slipping beyond his control. Clara, once composed and dedicated, had become distant and withdrawn, isolating herself and skipping prayers. That evening, Miguel again reviewed the footage. The pattern was clear night after night. The cardinal left his quarters and visited Clara's, staying for extended periods before returning. In one chilling moment, the cardinal could be seen beckoning Clara toward him. She hesitated, her posture tense, before slowly moving closer. Miguel's sense of dread deepened. He struggled to reconcile the revered leader he admired with the troubling behavior on screen. Torn between loyalty and truth, he knew that silence might protect reputations, but it could also bury something far more dangerous. What lay beneath the surface of these late-night visits, he could. Her body language was cautious, her every movement deliberate. When she finally left the room, her eyes were rimmed with red, as if she had been crying. This wasn't an isolated incident, there was a troubling consistency to the secrecy, subtle yet undeniable. Miguel's mind swirled with conflicting thoughts. He wanted to believe there was an innocent explanation, but the persistent secrecy cast a long, dark shadow over any hopeful assumption. For hours, he sat in silence, weighing his options. Confronting Cardinal Tagle could cost him everything: his position, his reputation, perhaps even the stability of the entire parish. Yet doing nothing felt like a betrayal of his own integrity and of the trust the parishioners placed in him. He was trapped in an impossible dilemma. A sudden buzz from his phone startled him, snapping him from his thoughts. He hesitated before picking it up, dreading what news it might bring. The caller ID displayed the name of the security company, and a sinking feeling settled in his chest. "Father Miguel," said the operator, their voice cautious but firm. "We've reviewed additional footage and noticed a recurring pattern of activity. Given the circumstances, we believe this behavior is highly irregular and may warrant further action." Miguel thanked them and hung up, his heart heavy. If even the security company had raised concerns, how much longer could he justify his silence? His gaze drifted back to the monitor, where a frozen image of Cardinal Tagle outside Clarara's door stared back at him. The cardinal's expression was composed, but his secretive movements betrayed a sense of purpose that unsettled Miguel. Leaning back in his chair, he felt the crushing weight of the decision he had to make. He thought of the parishioners and their whispered suspicions, of Clarara's withdrawn demeanor, of the trust that had been placed in the clergy, and of Cardinal Tagle himself, a man revered by so many, whose reputation now hung by a fragile thread. As dawn broke, casting a soft golden light across the church, Miguel reached his decision. He could no longer ignore what he had seen. The truth had to be uncovered, but it must be approached with care and respect. An hour later, Miguel stood outside the cardinal's quarters, heart pounding so loudly he feared it would echo down the quiet corridor. Clutching his rosary for comfort, he took a deep breath and knocked. The door opened almost immediately. Cardinal Tagle greeted him warmly, his voice steady. "Father Miguel, what brings you here at this hour?" Miguel swallowed hard and stepped inside. The room was modest, in keeping with Tagle's reputation for humility, but Miguel barely noticed. His focus was entirely on the man before him. "Your Eminence," he began, voice trembling slightly, "there is something I must address, though it pains me to do so." Tagle gestured for him to sit, his expression calm. "Please, speak freely." Miguel chose his words with care. "Over the past several nights, I've reviewed the security footage. It appears you've been visiting Clarara's quarters late at night. The secrecy, the timing, it raises questions I can no longer ignore." A silence fell between them, heavy and tense. But to Miguel's surprise, the cardinal's expression softened, not with anger, but with understanding. Folding his hands, Tagle spoke gently. "Sister Clara has been struggling with severe depression. When I first arrived, she approached me privately, seeking guidance. She feels isolated, burdened by guilt she can't escape, and overwhelmed by expectations." Miguel's breath caught in his throat. Clarara's pale face, her hunched posture, her quiet withdrawal, all the signs had been there, but he had been too consumed by suspicion to see them clearly. The late-night meetings were at her request, Tagle continued. She felt safer speaking in the dark, away from curious eyes. I agreed not to hide anything, but to preserve her dignity and privacy. She feared how others might perceive her vulnerability. Miguel stared at him, the weight of his assumptions crashing down. He felt a pang of guilt for how quickly he had let fear and rumors cloud his judgment. "I understand your concern, Father Miguel," Tagle said, his voice steady and kind. "But sometimes our roles require discretion. My only aim was to offer her comfort and spiritual counsel." Relief washed over Miguel, tempered by a deep sense of shame. He had doubted the cardinal's integrity. Lowering his head, he spoke softly. "I'm sorry, Your Eminence. I let doubt blind me." Tagle placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We are all human, Father Miguel. Even in our faith, fear can creep in. What matters is that we act with humility and seek the truth as you have done." As Miguel left the cardinal's quarters, a sense of peace began to settle within him. Still, he couldn't ignore the lesson he had learned. Appearances could be deceiving. He resolved to face future uncertainties with both caution and compassion, recognizing how damaging assumptions could be not only to himself but to others. That afternoon, Clarara approached him in the stillness of the chapel. Her steps were tentative, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you, Father, for understanding, and for keeping my struggles private." Miguel nodded, humbled by her trust. "You're not alone, Clara," he replied gently. "We're here to help you carry that burden." Her lips curled into a faint smile, a flicker of hope returning to her tired expression. As she walked away, Miguel felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had learned a hard but necessary truth that doubt, while human, must be tempered with understanding. As the chapel fell silent again, he reflected on the lesson. Appearances can mislead, but empathy has the power to reveal the light hidden within even the darkest corners of doubt.